the magnitude of the response. I mean, I saw police cars and fire trucks from Tennessee, I mean, California, I mean, Arizona. You saw so much response. It was something that was overwhelming. You just saw it was a concentrated effort. I'm currently a retired police officer. At that time, I was a New York City police officer assigned to Highway Patrol. Where I had worked, we were a citywide unit that responded if we had to at any given time. I remember radio communication over the radio that it had small plane that had hit the World Trade Center. After hearing all the commotion on the radio and all the responses from all the different units throughout the city, we got a 10-2 forthwith back to our station house up on the Grand Central Parkway. We had traveled at a very high rate of speed to get into the Manhattan. We were probably one of the first units that could get to places fast. We were on the expressway. From what I recall, we were traveling somewhere on the expressway and we heard that the second plane had hit. We were approaching the Midtown Tunnel and we were going over the Queens Midtown Expressway where you could see the World Trade Center to your left as you're going westbound into the tunnel. And we saw both towers on fire. At that time it was chaotic. We had pulled in front and we were looking for supervisors to direct us on what we had to do. We came across one supervisor that told us to stand by for possible escorts of anybody that was injured or killed, because that's what we did. We did medical escorts. We did high risk escorts, that type of stuff, to to escort ambulances to get the people that were fatally injured to a hospital quickly. I had to go pick up some nurses from another hospital on the west side of Manhattan, and coming back, that's when the first tower came down. The next assignment I had, we had to actually take city buses and just get all the people out of Manhattan, lower Manhattan, and bring them uptown to a safe location. We actually drove around with the buses, escorting the buses, and instructing people over the PA system of the police car to get on the bus and to leave Manhattan. Another assignment that we had was, actually, the lieutenant told me and Officer Rodriguez to go. He had told us to get radios for firemen, and he had 2 firemen with him. And the 2 firemen looked like they'd been through hell. They were covered in muck. And that one of the nearby hotels was on fire and actually getting ready to collapse. And he told us, get radios for these firemen. Their radios are failing. I don't care how you get them radios. It's okay. So get in the car. We took them in the car. We searched all over the city for radios. Could not find an open store. I found the Radio Shack open up on 32nd Street and 3rd Avenue. I remember this clearly. And we went to the door. We banged on the door, and there were 2 Middle Eastern descent persons inside the Radio Shack. They wouldn't open the door for us. I was in full uniform, and he would not open the door for us. And I banged on the door. He demanded open the door. At that point, he was talking to me through the door. I said, open the door before I break through the door. He opened the door. I told him, I said, where's your radios? We need your radios. We're taking your radios. He kind of gave me a little bit of shit, but I said, we're taking your radios. I said, the authority of my police shield. This is my name. I'm taking the radios. Fireman came in. I said, take what you need. They went in. They emptied the shelves of all the 2-way radios, and we took the radios. At that point, when we were leaving the store, he asked me for payment. So I said to him, I said, the authority of my police shield, I said, call the mayor of the city of New York. They'll pay for the radios. We have an emergency downtown, and this is a police action. And we left, and we took the radios. I got home at probably about 3 o'clock in the morning. I had enough time to take a shower, maybe grab an hour of sleep, and I went back at 4:30 in the morning. Got in at 5:15, somewhere in there. I remember being 15 minutes late. The second day I was assigned down to the location. Actually, it was just a standby thing, and then I got assigned to the temporary morgue. It was right on site, and it was next to the Burger King and the McDonald's that was on the corner that got gutted. I was assigned to the morgue to escort any of the bodies or remains of the police officers or firefighters that came out of the building, and escort them to the morgue on 31st Street. I did a couple days at the morgue, and actually after I started picking up families of the deceased police officers, or police officers that weren't found, I started to feel it. I started to feel the fatigue. I started to feel the pressure, so-called pressure, and you know, after dealing with the families. As I look back through my memo book and I look back at the hours, I did just a little over 200 hours down at the location between the morgue, escorting family members. I actually had one or 2 days, I escorted some building inspectors down to the location. I actually escorted the head of customs and also the mayor. After 9/11, in December of 2001, I was actually called for a small village police job out in Oyster Bay, Long Island. And actually, it was a job I was working on for about 10 years to get out there to a small village police department. They called me December 31st, 2001. I got sworn in. Started coming down. I felt a little off, you know, my nasal area, my throat. Just felt a little out of place, but I chalked it up to a new place and being out of you know, just trying to get something new, to learn something new. I was a new kid on the block. I was a rookie. I left NYPD with 17 and a half years in the job, and went out to the police department out in Long Island. So I was the rookie. I was the so-called rookie, and you know, just hung out, and I started to come down with things, and I just dismissed it. February 7th of 07, I responded to a house fire. I remember pulling up in front of the house fire. Apparently, from what I was told, I removed 2 people out of a full house fire from the building, and that was the end of my police career.
You said you didn't remember.
Did not remember going in or coming out. I found myself back out at the station house with green and black soot coming out of my nose. I actually thought I escaped the World Trade Center injuries. Looking back now, that house fire and the World Trade Center injuries, which were inside of me, did me in. It was a combination of both. The illnesses I came down with my lungs and my sleep apnea and my post-traumatic stress, it actually it's changed me as a person on how I react to things and how my family functions. And it just, you know, put me into I didn't want to retire as a police officer. I was forced to retire.
From what I'm learning now, and it's been years before I even understood about post-traumatic stress. I just thought my husband didn't care about his family, didn't care, you know, just didn't want any part of us. And now learning about post-traumatic stress, I'm starting to understand what the effects are. And his distance and all the things he's been through. People just think that day is over and it's time to move forward, but there's a lot of healing that still needs to be done.
See, when I came on a job in the police department back in the 80s and 84, when I came on a job, it was, you know, we were dealing with all the old-timers. And the old-timers that had 20, 30 years on, that were war vets from the wars. And they told us to keep your mouth shut. That's the way we were taught. You can't keep your mouth shut. You gotta say what's on your mind. You have to say what's bothering you, because if you don't, it's gonna eat you up.